Journey onwards. As the saying goes in Ultima 4. I love that saying. Journey onwards. It continues as we travel through the sky here. I can see it, and I weirdly see sparkles of stars on left and right in our sunny skies, sunny blue skies. Welcome back, Artist Journal, March 17th, 2025. Making it up as I go along. Another improvisation here for you. It is going to have to be sped through this show as much as possible. Because I was almost devolving to earlier habits of just kind of finding and searching and finding new things and everything. And before you know it, the morning is gone. So welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. So this is Yuka, I think. Let's actually look at their name. This is Deadly Yuka it's Momo. And the Twitter handle or X handle is Deadly Yuka. So I don't know too much. I did a little bit of research, I think out of Japan. And kind of, another one of these pixel artists who are out of Japan. And this one also incredibly interesting. I'm pretty sure we looked at their work, I want to say like a year and a half to 2 years ago. It's not the first time we've seen this artist on the show. And it's to me, it's kind of mysterious. Like, put it this way. I feel like I totally understand, in a sense, the aesthetic, which is this cool kind of retro pixel art that we see from Hermipe sometimes. And there's also an artist on Object. I'll have to dig through my collection. There's an artist on Object who works kind of along these lines of kind of old video games, but that seem to be processed almost as if it's using the old screens. And so, again, it's kind of mysterious to me when I look at this, because we have kind of a celebration of sorts here by the artist of the aesthetics of what we might call retro pixel art. Right, where you almost see it's almost got that 2-to-1 ratio here in a horizontal sense. Like, are the pixels square? I guess here it's square, but is that just two rectangles, two 2x1 rectangles put together? That's kind of what it looks like to me. It's kind of got a little bit of a wide angle. Sometimes it's like the 2-to-1, like you'll see Mech do 2-to-1 vertically in that kind of in the tiling. Sprite tiling series, MS-DOS series. So we're back to this image here. So we have that layer of the pixel art, right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Beautiful colors here and everything. But then we have the second layer, which is the fuzzed outedness. And I don't think this is just a bad rendering, so to speak. This is crucial, as you're going to see in the following images. This is crucial to the work itself, and this is not on the blockchain as far as I know. This is more of a X, just something posted on X by Deadly Yuka, making cheap pixel art and poor games. Kind of reminds you, reminiscent of Hermipe in the sense of not really minting the work, so to speak. And part of Night Peppermint, which seems to be, if you go here, a small collective for making poor games. So there seems to be a video game thing. But we seem to be getting fairly arty video game graphics, shall we call it. Midnight Peppermint, not much said here, right? And then you go to the website and not much said. Momo Murakami, art and code, scenario Toshihiro Higuchi. So again, kind of sounding Japanese, doesn't it? A small collective for making poor games. So now So it's interesting because when you look at the work, and here's another example of this similar subject, it's actually the same. Like if you look here, right? And also posted mysteriously to me, maybe this is just Momo doing their thing, probably, right? But here we have again this wild rendering, as you see here, as if it's like an old monitor, or is it old and so we do have a clue, and this is also kind of beautiful. And I mean, and what this evokes, the second layer, so to speak, again, the first layer being the pixel art. This is a different pixel art, rendering. And then the second layer being almost like a reference to the screen, so to speak. So here we seem to have almost a more fuzzed out screen, a slightly different textured screen. And what that whole paradigm, so to speak, or however you want to put it, it evokes the celebration, the whole way of thinking. It evokes the celebration of the JPEG artifact, which we have seen, which maybe you see in glitch artists. I think of actually Jeff Koons in the traditional contemporary art, where I'll never forget being at a show here in Berlin and seeing this massive Jeff Koons painting. I mean, by Jeff Koons and the team painting, and how it had a oil painting rendering of JPEG artifacts of a rose. And so, which I think is quite interesting, right? I mean, and it's kind of not the Jeff Koons that really gets celebrated. It's like the silver, the bubble dog, made of, the metal seems to be, but to me, this stuff is far more interesting. Or what we saw with the repainting the Mona Lisa, but at a larger scale, and then painting all the little cracks. Very interesting. So when I see this is, we're kind of back to this, which is, I guess, the medium or media through which images are presented, I guess, is what the mediation, so to speak, of images from, here there's a layer in between. There's a film between the pixel art and what we're looking at right here. And that film, so to speak, or that layer is transforming and mediating the image to us. And it's a different kind of mediation than what's going on here, right? This one seems to be a little bit more high tech, so to speak, or high resolution. So all very interesting. And so I remember this. I feel like this is from 2023. Like, I think if you dig back, somewhere out there in the show, we've looked at these works, and you almost see like a vertical 2:1 pixel kind of bias. It's tempting to say, but who knows? Tinted, and the color as well is worth noting. So this is the closest clue I could find in Momo's feed, but quite an interesting one. What do we have here? I actually brought it up larger here so we have a Texas Instruments computer here, but with what looks like an iPad somehow connected. And here we see what looks like Apple Mini. And I believe somewhere in the comments that I believe there is I think here. I believe if we look here it is. Here's another clue as to what's happening and how, in a sense, this mediation, so to speak, or these renderings are being produced. I'm not sure, but I've heard that it's a good idea to get a cartridge that can connect a Raspberry Pi to it, expand the memory, and put in various ROMs and GROMs. So referring to this picture here. So, I mean, when you look at the translator here, I mean, maybe it's just maybe this iPad seems to plug into, I assume, this Apple Mini, but maybe it's plugging, I don't know how or even if the Texas Instruments computer is plugging into this, but you kind of assume it is, right? And what I ask myself is, are these screenshots? Because one of the issues you're going to have if you're making these images on an actual old computer, as we seem to have there with that Texas Instruments computer, is how are you going to capture it? How do you capture it? And I guess what you need is somehow to plug in an old computer into a new monitor or an iPad where you can basically do the screenshot, right? So I assume that's what's happening here because they don't look like photos of the screen. Which is kind of of paramount importance, I'd argue, because if you take a photo of the screen, it's just a different situation. It's a different meaning, right? A different visual meaning. It's subtle, but it's kind of all important, I would argue. So very interesting. Quite a beautiful. Love the color on this, by the way, of this home screen. Press any key to continue. So again, super interesting there. Here's just a few more examples, which in a sense are going to be more clues as well. Because as you see here, it looks kind of like a video game, and I'm not sure, this is as large as it goes here. But you'll see almost like a slightly different kind of texture, so to speak, of the screen. And interestingly, again, it looks like a perfect recording, so to speak. I don't know if it's made on an old computer or not, or if it's just using old screens. I mean, that's a whole other solution, is maybe you put... Cool audio. Maybe you put... like maybe another way of doing this is you put a, new computer and then you put it on an old screen, but I don't know how you screen capture that, but maybe you can. I don't know. So more interesting works here, and let's just open this large. So as you see here, and and you can see there's the bigger lines, but there's also, I'm not sure if you can see that here, but there's little lines in the dark here as well. You can kind of see them here, just very tiny in the roof here. So here are larger lines. And the screen seems to be dictating, these lines seem to be dictating the graphics to a certain degree, which is also kind of interesting. So just all very interesting. Again, a bit of a mystery here for me. I think. So, and as you see here, and again, looks like screen recording of a video game. It's almost like, and you see the frame, like I'm kind of like, how do they see this? Do they see this as video games or art, or probably both, as it kind of looks like? Or maybe it's not even a functional video game, which would definitely make it, in a sense, art, like a kind of simulated video game scenes without the gameplay, which is kind of fine with me, makes it kind of even more exciting. Now here, we seem to have, we do have the lines, but it's quite interesting when you put the vertical strokes, so to speak, of the tree and then against the lines, it almost creates this knitted kind of look here. And you see how fuzzed out this is. And then interestingly, in a couple of tabs, you're going to see that celebrated. We're kind of back to Jeff Koons and the rows that celebrating the JPEG artifacts through oil paint. Here, test. So again, and it seems to, again, be a perfect video here. Nice color, by the way, on this one. A little brighter, interestingly. Here you have Aseprite, which is a pixel art software, as many of you know. And so interesting. I've never seen Aseprite like this. So also combining, maybe Aseprite is being somehow filtered through old screens. I don't know, but it's all pretty darn interesting. Now look at this. So you have this figure here. Back to our kind of detective work here. And if anybody has ideas as to how this is actually happening, feel free to write a comment. I'm kind of all over that. Because this looks like it's been created in Aseprite and then filtered through an old, mediated, so to speak, or filtered through an old screen. And you can almost even see like the waviness of an old screen kind of literally glitching a tiny bit. And so we have this, and we also have this, again, celebrating the kind of, the artifacts, so to speak, of the screen, which makes an interesting contrast. It's worth mentioning between what you might consider pixel art. It's made in Aseprite. Again, if we go back here, this is pixel art. But when you come here, you have a huge contrast between the geometric, crisp, mathematical, vector-like pixel art, infinitely, multipliable a million times without losing its resolution, nearest neighbor, as the Photoshop people know. But here, so you have that contrast of the perfect crispness of pixel art with the analog reality, with analog physical reality, the fuzzed outedness, right? A magical contrast, and maybe a better way of, a more understated way of putting it is just a hard contrast between, again, the digital perfection and the analog. And again, it's almost like an analog synth. We were talking about visual synths last episode, referring to the glitch people, analog video glitch people. But here, again, it's like, it's reminiscent. It gives it the warmth, as the analog synthesizer people will say. There's a warmth here, interestingly. So in here, just one more. I think it's one more. And then we have the Instagram. So just interesting, isn't it? And pretty persuasive. Again, you can just imagine, here's just more examples here. Almost like an old silent movie, interestingly. Almost like this hearkening back. So here, and this was kind of interesting in and of itself, just showing, hey, here's some, basically pixel art I'm working on. Almost looks like an Element Lee, right? Here, a simpler, what looks like a lower resolution image. Look at this. Again, we see these horizontal kind of 2x1 pixels. Vatican. So who knows? Okay, so starting us off here, Yuka, a super interesting artist, Deadly Yuka, also known as MoMA, who I think, and we had the name there on the website, Momo Murakami is the name of the artist. Big correction. I was kind of delighted to not be corrected on it. So I was referring to, but I thought afterwards, I'm like, is this actually a pastiche? I was like, a perfect pastiche, I remember thinking. I'm like, is that a pastiche? Skamra's work here, which is what I would call a homage, actually, to Fragonard's The Swing. So is it a pastiche? I don't think it's a pastiche. I think it's actually more of a homage. The way and we'll look at the definition here, but generally speaking, like, think of Rare. If you know Rare's work, where he'll take something like The Swing here, and then he'll put like the Tesla robot in it, right? That's pastiche. Or you take the style of, say, Andy Warhol, like what's his name, Mr. Brainwash does, and then you kind of replace the Campbell's soup can, and you take the style of the screen printing style, but then you put something like Airbnb or something logo. That's also pastiche, where you take the style. So here I asked Grok, let's see how Grok works. What's the difference between pastiche and a homage in art? In art, pastiche and homage are terms that describe the ways artists engage with or reference the other works, but they differ in intent, execution, and tone. A pastiche is a work that imitates the style, techniques, or elements of another artist, genre, or period, often blending multiple influences into something new. It's typically more about mimicry or playful recombination than reverence. Pastiche doesn't necessarily aim to honor the original. It might even lean towards parody or neutral imitation. Think of it as an artistic collage. It borrows heavily but creates its own identity. For example, a postmodern painting might mix Van Gogh's brushstrokes with Warhol's pop art imagery just to see what happens. A homage, on the other hand, is a deliberate tribute or expression of respect towards a specific artist, work, or tradition. It's less about copying for its own sake and more about celebrating or acknowledging the original's influence. Homage often carries a tone of sincerity or admiration. So here, pastiche, imitation, and creativity, often playful or detached. Homage, imitation, and reverence. And so I would say, to me, this seems like more of a homage of sorts. An appropriation, perhaps. I don't know. Let's call it a homage. If someone has a better word, feel free to share it. This wonderful work here by Skamra, which we return to. So again, I don't think pastiche is the right word for that. So just want to do a big correction there. And big thank you to the collectors of AI Girlfriend, new series here on Object, all made on the phone. Based on screenshots of all these crazy ads that I get on Instagram of AI girlfriends. I don't know if anybody else are getting, if I'm the only person getting the AI girlfriend ads, but they're very fun subject matter. So thank you, everybody, to all the collectors for picking these works up. A couple of variations here of AI girlfriend number 1. Continuing on, let's go to the comments here. and of episode 407 as we continue. Scamra, so the artist who we're just discussing. Thanks, Adrian, for featuring my work on this episode. And special thanks for especially the kind words about my piece in your show. For clarity, the original that you referred to was what I was referencing, and that was actually an open question. And yes, I had posted it on Twitter about a month ago, and I think I showed it actually on the show. With almost all my work, I like to post it first and not only see how the work resonates with followers, but also recontextualize the work for myself and see it as a public work. Thanks for pointing out the size of the original. I thought of my version as a type of miniaturization, both on purpose to meet the type of digital aesthetic and by necessity, as Stable Diffusion 1.4 is best at creating images with one side at 512 pixels before upscaling. I appreciate your discussion of keeping the reference to the original. I do want to invoke the question of tradition, or at least consider how digital art is and is not part of the same art history. And exactly, I used to think of it as just an extension and that it was really the continuation of painting. I increasingly see it as a parallel tradition that is in the visual arts and has a lot of overlap in common, particularly from a content point of view. But in fact, it is so alien, the way of really the closest overlap we have are these virtual painting tools. The fact that, okay, we have a brush, and then that the brush is copying, traditional brushes. But then we have pixel art. So anyways, we could keep discussing, and we have many times. Also, I like winking at the question of morality of using the original. Indeed, and not referencing it. And because in a sense, the difference between what we just saw in Scamra's version and the original is so far apart that you could actually make the argument that, hey, Scamra didn't even need to reference it. And is that a moral issue? Though I certainly don't want to explore that question in detail. I do like the stories. I do like to tell stories with most of my images, and I like to include the story of the original Fragonard work and of AI appropriation, and even the story about infinite reproduction by making two versions. Thanks again. You're welcome, Scamra, and thank you for the detailed response there. To that awesome, beautiful, both works, just gorgeous, gorgeous works. Rada Yonki, thank you, Adrian. The journals mean a lot to me and really help me in many ways. You deserve a lot. Thank you, Rada. A huge supporter of this show, and actually we're going to see some awesome Bitcoin works by Rada. Rada's on Bitcoin, awesomely. Also, comments on X, and thank you for the response. Francis, thank you so much for featuring my works in your journal. It really means a lot to me. I truly appreciate your thoughts. You're welcome. If you're wondering who Francis is, remember Two Handzilla with the collages using the cartoons and everything. I think it's not the first time, but I haven't shown too much. I made sure to follow Two Handzilla this time around, but I remember about somewhere like 200 or 300 shows ago, I remember seeing those collages. I'm pretty sure there's one show in there somewhere deep in the library there. Absurdity, thank you for the comment. Absurdity, such a wonderful way to end the work week, Adrian. Thank you as always for your ongoing creation of Artist Journal. You're more than welcome. Thank you for watching. And thank you for all your support. To take what you were discussing regarding inspiration to a different place, you're showing up, and I am being inspired. Indeed, it is all about showing up here. A question arose to me as you were reading Chris Stoich's post regarding the partnership between Transient Labs and Super Rare. And I mean this most sincerely, and my apology to Chris if I'm simply ignorant or naive. I've certainly been in both the Web3 space. I've certainly been both in the Web3 space on multiple occasions, but just what is a creative pipeline? Is it a financially supported group? So referring to the partnership between Transient Labs and Super Rare. Is it a financial supported group of chosen artists or other gate-kept incubator of talent? Or is the $2.5 million in Rare to be distributed in a gamified manner? They didn't say. And that was kind of my response to Absurdity. It was all just general. It was basically an announcement that they're going to partner up. So Absurdity, looking for more details. If so, how is it that different than every other managed source? So Absurdity is showing a little bit of skepticism here, which I think is fair enough. And I think even the Super Rare and Transient Labs people might understand the skepticism with all of the kind of crypto gamifications. What I said, though, in response to Absurdity is at least they're saying, let's not try and turn art into, the proverbial SHIT coins. And so at least, like, to me, it's like, okay, at least they're not trying to do that, which other people seem to be wanting to do for a year now. Don't mean to be critical here, but in my humble opinion, the most powerful creative pipeline of Web3 has and continues to be Object and Tezos blockchain. This is my multiple times each day go-to, and I tell you, the notifications on Object, which they still need to fix, but at least the fact that they work and you see them, they do need to fix them still. Are really the most important. It's their most important feature, which is, so anyways, let's continue. I don't need a platform funded with $2.5 million in Rare to find incredibly talented art. Indeed, watching Artist Journal combined with my regular reviews of the recent collections of the top dozen Object collections will lead me to 90% of both the established and emerging talent on the Tezos blockchain. Yeah, like, in a sense, also what I said in responses, at least, like, weirdly, there's an opening on Ethereum for an engaged platform. And I think we could say Super Rare has been somewhat engaged, but not super engaged. And it seems like now they're trying to get re-engaged. So let's see what happens. And honestly, I think they should open up the gates at Super Rare. I think that is probably the wisest thing they could do. Because as we see on, like, because you're never going to have the gate open to all the talent out there. So they should just open the gates. And I think then they're going to start getting artists, because then artists are going to go, oh, cool, I can mint on Super Rare rather than Foundation, which you're not sure if it's being maintained and what's the deal. Is it taking a second seat to Rodeo? So that's what I think they should do. And then they don't even need to worry about the gatekeeping and reward. Like, just forget about it. Just open it. I mean, that's the biggest threat to Object, frankly, would be to Super Rare opening their platform. You know, like, you want to get art on Ethereum again, and yeah, sure, it's there, but like, really, just open it up. And I say that as an artist on Super Rare, so I should all be like, oh no, like, but just like, I mean, from a purely pragmatic point of view. Object has proven that having an open gate is actually the best, will produce the most art on the platform. Let's put it this way, will produce very strong results. Let's continue. Ethereum does not have an object, so has no choice but to proactively attempt to create something that has already existed for some time on Tezos. And what supports art? Yeah, like, again, if I was Super Rare and Transient Labs, there'd be two things I would do. I would open the gates, and then I'd put $2.5 million into getting a really good notification system. And that's where I'd leave it. And I'd just be like, we're all about creating basically the social network aspects of this platform. That's where I'd put all the money. I don't think you need, otherwise, what do you need to do? I mean, let the artists do their thing, and let's just make sure they can connect. Maybe if you're super ambitious, you put messaging in the Super Rare platform, and like, wow. Do you make, I have doubts about $2.5 million can motivate me and artists to do anything. What do you say? So I think I've answered. Do you make art and mint to a platform because you're going to get some Rare in your wallet? No, I don't think so. And by the way, so why is Rare not just like any other coin, and therefore an insufficient incentive to attract the most talented artists to do anything? So yes, so I think we dealt with that. So I hear your skepticism, Absurdity, but I say at least they're not trying to push something that artists hate. That the half of the artists hate. At least they're going, hey, we want this to be about the art. So I say, great. Let's continue. Austin. Hi, Adrian. Thanks for the feature in this episode. Always appreciate a shout out. At the moment, Zero Contract created by Justin Zero and Jam2 Blues is where I'm at. Yeah, and actually, I have a couple of tabs on that coming up. How are we doing? 30 minutes. I will continue with BTC inscriptions also, but the Zero Contract community is growing strong with people experimenting with a lot of different art styles. Yeah, I think it's great. And it looks like they have a platform. We're going to see in a second. Thank you for the comment, Jeremy. Tai Mei, I'm from Taiwan. Okay, so that answers the question. Thank you, Tai. Great to hear from you. Ed Woods, for my piece, there was no reference, just me brain. Thank you. So, right, there was a piece that we looked at, and I was wondering, where did that come from? Because Edwards sometimes uses references, so there was no reference. Their area, best show on the net. Thank you. Awesome to hear. Kel's nice one, Adrian. Many hot takes and brilliant works. Inspirational. Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that, because last episode was another episode where I was like, I don't know about that episode, but I just have to hit publish. So I didn't think people would, so thank you. Where's H.U.? As usual, I watched your show while making art. Perfect combo. I agree on commissions. They can feel like just working. Yes, that's why I'm selective. The series for absurdity, sometimes someone I really respect, so I'm happy to do it. For the tea towels, I had it printed at a shop. Turned out amazing. I've also printed on wood, acrylic, and more. Print tech is getting crazy these days. Indeed it is. And look at that. Just breaking it down into different layers. How cool is that? So that is pretty interesting. Is that a rinny fish? Interesting. So, yeah, print tech is getting incredible. Thanks for posting that. Revolu, great to hear from you. Skull Takes, so nice to see Two Handzilla on the journal. Been a fan of their collages for a while. So awesome. Yeah, and again, very cool collage artist. This was Hen Collector. Excuse me. I'm a huge Skamra fan and collector. Coming out of hiding. Skamra's pieces help me navigate the species we are becoming. Every new piece like peering through the eyes of a peculiar stranger exploring something we thought we knew. A reimagining of elemental forms. So Hen Collector, one of the biggest and oldest hen collectors, so to speak, on the Bitcoin on Tezos. Really voicing the appreciation for Skamra. I mean, I'll say this. Skamra is very consistent. And if you're that consistent at just producing work and with your practice, I mean, it almost inevitably goes somewhere. Like 98%, let's put it 90% of the time. So, yeah, and look at this. Just another great example. Now, this article, this was interesting. So this got posted around a bit. I think Nicholas Dietrich posted this, and I also saw it somewhere else. Forget blue chip art. It's red chip art world now. Now, I feel like this is on ArtNet. Artists and collectors, once dismissed as tacky, have been gaining power. They may hold the key to art industry's future. I feel like this article kind of got it 10% right, 90% kind of off. Let me show you why I think that. Annie Armstrong for ArtNet. Imagine a man barreling down a highway. His Cybertruck alerts him like he's on low energy, so he pulls into a supercharging station. He's thirsty, so he checks his crypto wallet and sees how things are going. Is it time to rug pull? Not yet. So again, just get to the point. Where is this person headed in their Cybertruck? So it's all of a sudden it's politicized immediately. And that's what they're saying here. The Eden Fine Art Gallery at the Wynn Gallery for an Alec Monopoly opening. The Wynwood Walls and Jupiter Party sponsored by Uniqlo. So what I think this writer is getting 10% right is there's an organic, through the internet, I would argue. I'm not sure if they're putting that connection, but I'd say it's an organic, audiences are growing for what I call almost internet artists. And you can almost have two kinds of internet artists, like artists that make work that's almost designed to be seen online. Let's call it digital art. And then there's people who just become famous, so to speak, through the internet, people like Alec Monopoly. By building their own thing, and not really because, some gallery made them a big deal through social media. So again, and we almost think of Hermipe working with Uniqlo here. Perotens MSCHF opening on Manhattan's Lower East Side. He is a red chip art collector, and he's gaining more traction. So they're basically, this writer is basically pointing out that there is a growing appreciation for what I call internet artists, for lack of a better term. There's two ways you could define that, but I'm speaking in the general sense. So they're calling it red chip. When I heard this years ago, I might have misunderstood. It popped up and disappeared during the boom of 2021. Then we hear of ultra contemporary art, which is just obnoxious. I held on to the adage, though, and I've been honing my definition, which I found useful in recent years. What is red chip art? Finally, to the point. It's not unrelated to Trumpism. Again, I think this is a completely unnecessary. This isn't a political thing. You know what it is? It's a rejection. And it's not even a rejection of the traditional art world. It's a moving beyond the traditional art world, the contemporary art world, which is no longer doing enough to serve the people. That is what's going on here. So this isn't Trumpism at all, I would argue. So it's not unrelated to Trumpism and Trumpism's aesthetics, but it does not have an explicit political stance. So I am totally against politicizing people's appreciation of art. And then all of a sudden everybody red chip art isn't for Republicans and blue chip art isn't for Democrats, as we already know. Red chip art comes in many guises, but certain visual patterns predominate. Super flat cartoons, a street art graffiti aesthetic. I mean, Banksy is the contemporary art world, I'd argue. And here they had Cause. Cause is the contemporary art world. So now it's like, oh, but it's not the contemporary art world. So I don't know what they're talking about at this point. Like it's because they're politicizing the definition rather than just recognizing it, what I think is a much more obvious thing, which is artists through social media they're building their own audiences, which is kind of negating the importance of the contemporary art scene, or at least it's balancing it out a little bit. They're not just the be-all, end-all anymore. That's what's happening. So again, they're trying to characterize it according to style. Super flat cartoons, a street art graffiti aesthetic, and multicolored chrome. A crypto component is always welcome. So red chip art is defined by its refusal to revere art history. I mean, I would say crypto art tries to reference crypto rather than art history, but they even do reference art history. You think of the Pepe Mona Lisa. So I don't know what there's a lot of people who are like, oh, isn't this so interesting? Like, I don't think this person knows what they're talking about from and I'm sure they do, like in a lot of ways, but just in terms of their analysis, I completely disagree with. That's what 90% I'm totally off. 10% of this is right, which is there are these other things that are happening outside of contemporary art, and they are becoming a force. That I agree with. All of this other stuff, refusal to revere art history, I don't see that at all. Perhaps as a broader rejection of elite specialized knowledge. So again, we can't go through this whole thing. So again, I think the spirit of this is, the direction of this is right, but the analysis is totally wrong. Jamie Gurley, red chip art became a force to reckon with in 2021 when Beeple sold an NFT. And again, of his collected works, largely juvenile drawings for $69 million. To me, this whole $69 million thing, I think it was pointed out by people other than me, was a bit of I don't want to call it a wash trade, but it's like, some crypto project buys the Beeple, and then the crypto project becomes worth $69 million, and then they sell the coins. So is that really selling it for $69 million? Like, I don't know. It was kind of like there's quite a few stories on this. So now we're going to reference this again. So anyways, a lot of people kind of making a lot out of that article. I think it's 90% like off. That is just my opinion over here. Let's continue. CubeTez, let me announce zeroterminal.art. So I think this is I was kind of saying Object needs to get on this like on-chain thing. And now there's zeroterminal.art, all-in-one tool to interact with Tezos on-chain art, mint, send, trade all the on-chain inscribed art, optimize and improve version of Zero Contract with increased security. Like, the people want their on-chain art. The standalone version will be released soon. You'll be able to launch it not using any third-party website. You will be able to launch it not using Enjoy Tezos on-chain artists. So interesting. And this looks like the interface here. A little info about buy-sell feature on Zero Terminal. Trading contract on Zero Terminal is not mutual with Object.com. So if you want to trade something on Zero Terminal, you got to list it there. Right? So it's not, they're almost keeping it where you have to use their platform so that they don't get cannibalized. So interesting. Bruno Formaggio, I just realized I can now tokenize, we're really going to have to hurry here, whole images on-chain using Etherlink without IPFS, paying peanuts. Am I committing some sort of crime and making a server burn up somewhere, asking for a friend? So all kind of interesting. So seems like another way of avoiding interplanetary file server, as it's called, which is a point of, what do we call it, a point of risk, so to speak, in terms of the preservation of the art. Ed Woods, I still prefer these video game graphics over anything. I wonder how much it is. So here's Doom from maybe the 90s. The 90s era PC N64. Yeah, so I wonder how much, because I really relate to the Apple II images So I wonder how much it has to do with when we grew up as well. Like there is that nostalgia factor, which is quite interesting. We're going to see more by Ed Woods. Tornado Rodriguez, it takes so much time to draw, so you see all of the work. Love this work in progress here. Really nicely put together by Tornado. And here is Rennie Fish. One more bug book packed and ready to ship today. So Rennie Fish's book continues to move. So that is awesome to see. And here's Klaus. Did a little TV install today. And again, we're kind of back to this. We're kind of back to monitors and mediation, so to speak. How are you presenting this work, this especially digital work? Let's continue. So Waffles with a few works here dropping, all sold out, by the way. Continuing to do quite well with the move to Ethereum here, and love this, kind of a Super Mario reference, seemingly. And again, are we back to tools, custom-made tools? Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? So this is on Ethereum, selling for 0.15 ETH to Deggy D. Deggy D is spending thousands of dollars. Here's Reps, also put out. Deggy D is really supporting this ecosystem, which is quite exciting. So here, another cool work here. Kind of different kind of animation by Waffles here that went to Deggy D for 0.15. This went to Zoltar for 0.15. Bro Epic. So all coming out in, I think, this weekend. And as you see here, kind of a different kind of texture in the background and maybe a massive cigarette. And a Snoopy, once again, playing with these old comics, interestingly. This kind of, I want to say Beavis and Butthead, but who knows? What does this say? Shockwave Rider. And again, kind of looks like the custom, tooling in terms of the animation, which is kind of interesting. Again, even if it's super rudimentary, it doesn't matter, because all of a sudden, if you're taking these retro tools and customizing them, and then you're getting a slightly different animation, that's almost all you need. In terms of all of a sudden you have like a different feel and everything. I mean, it's pretty sci-fi, this whole situation. Level 8, so very fun, kind of video game reference here. Almost looks like a Mario type reference, but not sure. So this went to Deggy D for 0.15, and this went to Zoltar, Convoy. And again, a cool kind of animated work here by Hasdrubal Waffle on Ethereum using Foundation, right? So bringing in some real cash here, excitingly. And beautiful work here again. So back to the custom-made tools. Speaking of which, so we have Pixel Fool. Check this out. GIF generated by custom software. So here it comes. Here it comes. So here's Pixel Fool with a GIF created by custom software. So very interesting. Pixel Fool with a pretty big audience here. 88 Tezos, and how many are gone? Half gone. And when was this minted? 3 days ago. So half gone so far. So very interesting. Deggy D picking up Martin Bruce's work here for 150 Tezos. I mean, this is the thing. You know, I don't know where if Deggy D comes out of trad art and was a trad art collector, but if you're used to spending $10,000 or $20,000 on a work, you can buy a lot of art for one work, you know, so on the digital scene. So it's all very interesting. Anyways, here's Martin Bruce, another just kind of really cool, kind of nice rainbow work here, Navigator. Great title and just beautiful. Output levels, 900 by 700, edition of 1. Here's another. So Martin Bruce putting out a ton of work. Fight Scams, very cool work here. As you can see, playing with pixelation here in totally unique way that Martin Bruce does. This is for 350 Tezos. It says an edition of 1. And Ed Marola, I picked this up actually. There it is at 80 Tezos. I picked this up this morning. Ed Marola putting out 4 really cool works. I love this one. Painting here, Demon number 1. Almost has like an arabesque kind of look. Here's Demon number 4. Beautiful textures here. This is on Tezos, edition of 1 for 80 Tezos. And this great patterning, these beautiful frames. And the color, the palette. Demon number 2 and Demon number 3. So very, very, very cool works here by Ed Marola on Object. Here is a work, Neural Divine. I missed this earlier, but I want to show it because it's a really nice piece here by Neural Divine. I think this is AI, maybe some stable diffusion and some painting. What does it say here? The work is a continuation of the Transcendent Bodies collection. A very nice piece here, edition of 5, and I think sold out at 10 Tezos each. So very nice piece by Neural Divine. Here is Tugan Perilti. So this is on Tea or Object. And again, looking like kind of similar with these kind of jagged pixels and textures we often find with stable diffusion. Almost looks like a photo in the background, interestingly. What does it say here? Not too much info. Time will come, JPEG. Here is Kazuhiro Ehara with a beautiful, love the white background. It's a small world. And here almost a UFO, and just making it look so easy as I was just scribbling around, but it looks fabulous. It is the contrast and the wonderful colors. Among many other things, sold to Daggy D. Daggy D on the march. Here, Neon Monk as well, Zwozo. Mostly cloudy. This just came out. Let me see if I can get the volume carefully. So kind of looking like an interior, what do you call it, a foyer? I don't know, the interior of, looks like the interior of the agricultural building at the University of Saskatchewan is what that looks like. Beautiful clouds here, or the interior of a mall. And look at these. So just a super interesting work here by Zwozo. 33-second loop there, mostly cloudy, just beautiful feeling. Some really interesting works by Nov 1914, Circulos Plateados. And here, so this one's a smaller one. Love these trees and the color scheme that Nov has put together here. Different mark making and these kind of abstract juxtaposition. Edition of 1 going to Absurdity, only 20 Tezos. Nice deal. This is an edition of 3, Paraiso 6. So more of the tree. Just, again, love the palette and these wild trees that almost look like sampled leaves. So always keeping it interesting. This is number 5. Again, almost looks photographic, doesn't it? Super interesting as ever. Going to Aw Heck for 20 Tezos, 1 of 1. Here's a beautiful one, slightly different color. Arbol number 5. That went to Phoebe Hess, only 20 Tezos. So beautiful, beautiful work by Nov 1914. Always interesting. Souls. Everything will start again. So cool. Almost looking like a mythological creature here. And interesting texture too. A digital art piece, edition of 3 for 12 Tezos. Here is M. Suksu, picked up by Daggy D for 100 Tezos. So kind of a black and white work here by M. Suksu. So cool, almost looking like part of that astronomy series, perhaps. Here's a really interesting piece by Dan Control, Rubber Hose. This is on Foundation. Who is more iconic, who is less, all combined in a rubbery mess. So let's just open this large. So really scrunching all these black and white, what looks like Steamboat Willie together with Betty Boop. And just scrunching it together by Dan Control. Super cool. Here's also Dan Control putting some shoes together with an interesting gradient background there. And some VR helmets too. Really rad artist. And I think sold a whole bunch of meatworks, or at least some meatworks to Daggy D as well. Some work in progress. So this is quite interesting too. So working in Illustrator, as you can see. Dan Control, that looked like the gradient tool maybe. And then this is always interesting. I have an old work, actually, which celebrates these little dots. They're red. Red Venus, it's called. Yeah, so this is always interesting. Endless possibilities here. So very cool work. So working in Illustrator, clearly. Let's continue. This is Peindre. The stage is set, the lights, the crowd, the energy. Just interesting. I'm not sure if this is AI combination of painting or not, but interesting piece here by Peindre. Here is Luciana Guerra. This is on Bitcoin, and these have been there for a while. So selling out the original. And let me make sure I'm bringing up. I brought up both. Okay, so here is the work on Foundation, and here it is. This is the full scale. So nice kind of big piece here. And how big is this? Does it say? 311. Is that 31 bytes or is it more? Is it 300? Interesting. Not sure. Death of Time. So a couple of really nice works by Luciana Guerra. You can get the original. I'm not exactly sure how it works. Like, I guess I kind of do on Gamma, where it's like an original and then they make prints and then I guess you can sell the original. I've never seen, it's hard to, I don't know if that's a Bitcoin kind of unique way of doing it. Anyways, this is for sale, $835 for the original. Put it this way. I don't know what the difference is between the original and the prints, other than maybe on how it appears on the blockchain. The Scream of a Woman. Anyway, beautiful work here by Luciana Guerra. A nice kind of small work here, but full of image in 69. So that maybe this is 69 kilobytes, and maybe that other one was 311. Amazingly. So I think this is 311. Huge file for Bitcoin. If I'm not mistaken, Jose Narciso. This turned out better than I expected. This is a work in progress. So very interesting illustrator that we started tracking here on the show. So cool work there. Here is Louis Osborne. Edition of 20, sit back. This may trigger some of you. It may trigger me. If you fly enough, you start to really appreciate. You know what I love about Ryanair? Is you can't put the seats back. So you never have to worry that and some of the seats will go 10 centimeters from your face. Anyways, Louis Osborne on Object. Here's Daniel W. The Divine, a really cool 3-part series here. What is it called? Something Hermeticum. Very cool series here. Last sold 0.1 ETH. Nice sales from Daniel W. Here. And so, again, just almost looking like tarot cards. Is this sold? So available. This one's still available for 0.1. A couple of other cool works by Estelle. These are on Rodeo. I really love these works. And here are just a couple more, maybe a landscape or a face crushed. Very interesting, just fun and interesting works there on Rodeo from Estelle. Flores, Greg Niksumika, as we run through this. Cool kind of pile of gold using Excel. Very nice piece. Liking the use. I like how it's not all just using the one cell. It's like starting to join cells together, which is quite interesting. Francois Gamma on Rodeo, 46 minted, so cool pixel art here. Animated pixel art from Francois Gamma. Here is Nicholas Dietrich, Antarctic Processing Plant. So another awesome pixel art work, again, full of mystery here on by poetic pixel art by Nicholas Dietrich here. Love the landscape and everything. I mean, again, you can look at that. So that is still available. Only 7 Tezos, edition 20. Abstract Dog 7. This is by Dan Anthony Kelly, who I finally followed on Object. Sorry for the delay on that. And yeah, cool. So another cool animated dog edition of 15. There's 50 Tezos. Here is Ariel, Estrato number 18. Cool new pixel art abstract. It's a little genre. Who else? Yeah, someone else. Anyways, we'll get to that actually soon. Cap'n, who of course I follow. Nice little plant here. So with big pixels. Here's another work by Cap'n under the Figment skies called Follow. A little rabbit on the computer. There's our little guy. Protagonist, edition of 16 for 8 Tezos. Nice piece. Here's Rata on Bitcoin. So putting out a little series here, which we brought up. Here it is. So these are 35 Tezos. Get a 1 of 1 by Rata on Bitcoin. So there is another one, and you see characters here, and all at $35 or 0.00042. So pretty reasonably priced there for originals, so to speak, on Gamma. Here is Ed Woods doing Doom. So we saw Ed Woods talking about Doom earlier, so really nice piece here. And I think that's the character in Doom. Here's another great, only Tez. So suggestive work here. Nice kind of diagonals here. So playing around with what looks like the pesky, nice animation and everything. Interesting piece. That was on March 15th from Ed Woods. Cool from Yuri J. Oh, this is October 9th, 2024. I thought this was new. Room with a Ladder. Hilarious. And only 15 Tezos. A nice piece there. Element Lee icon factories. So a couple of cool canvases, so to speak, by Element Lee. And look at this. I love the composition here. Super wide angle, different kinds of framing devices, so to speak. Just super rad. Here's John, Windows Still Life number 135. As we run through this episode, so kind of a more minimal window by John on Tezos. Here's Ken Zapata with a couple of collectors here. Beautiful textures again. Almost looking like a record collection in that case. And here's another one with some interesting Windows edition of 11 with some Windows screens, computer screens in the background with diagrams. Here's Mumbleboy. We make the rules, okay? This is pretty cool. Mumbleboy's starting to really experiment here. I feel like between the shapes and the different ideas. Love it. I love where this is going. It's getting very, very, very interesting. Edition of 2 for 12 Tezos. Here's Enigmatris with more fruit done with ASCII. Beautiful work there. That's on X. Here is One Don't Knows reappearing on the scene here. This is on Super Rare. And we'll see if it loads up here. Not sure we have time. So maybe a larger file. So notable collage artist here, Joan of Arc. So nice new piece there. Here's Sojiro Nakaoka, and not exactly sure what this is, but I thought it looked kind of cool. Processing, as it says. Here is some pixel art, People at Tezos by Femiki. So cool, again, kind of operating system background. With a portrait, kind of pixel art portrait. That's an edition of 1. This looks like it's been burned by Slava 3. Structural scanning, so kind of cool, kind of pixel art-esque work here, or a lot of dithering there. Here is Ugor, I believe. God is 1996. So Ugor 1996 with another kind of looks like a Microsoft Paint work, edition of 10. Here is Chaotic Good, Evil Lawful, featuring Salawaki, and I believe this is by Santiago, also known as Time. It's kind of a humorous work here, and there is a Salawaki type figure. I don't know if that's AI or what. So anyways, cool looking work there. Uran Yekon, stream number 24. So a new stream here. And cool rendering by Uran Yakon. Here's Exmortal, also Overflow, as we see kind of a waterfall, kind of black and white, minimal work here. Edition of 13, sold out. Here's Renki Ishikoshi. Very cool work by Renki here in our closing minutes, and just gorgeous. Edition of 10, interestingly. Here's Kiro. Not going to leave that on for too long, but with a whole series here because of the flashing. So interesting. We'll see how the computer handles this. Froggyplex, maybe. So this is on objects. So a whole new series here you can get from Kiro. And here's Von Doyle using what looks like old kind of GAN AI kind of vibes. So that is on object. There's an edition of 1 at auction for 250 Tezos. And here is Pete Ritchie, I think. Peter Ritchie, some new heat from Peter Ritchie. I follow Legojo, or Lejo X, I should say. So nice, another more interesting AI work here from, I believe, Pete Ritchie. The Paragon Becomes Central. Very cool work here. And here is Danielle King. Good night. Almost got a bit of a Stable Diffusion vibe, perhaps, on this one. So interesting piece. Here's No Hygiene. And Angels as Flawed, Pitiable Creatures. So more Angels from No Hygiene. And here are some physical works which we're going to run through here. We have a minute. Ilya Bliznet, of course I follow. So interesting canvas here. And here's It's Not Gallery, Chad Edding. I thought this was hilarious. Lebanon, Visit Lebanon, New Hampshire. Super funny. Kayla Mattis with another work. I don't think we saw this one. And here is Albert Contemporary showing Lainey Enel, I think. So great piece here. Love the kind of spray paint of the title there. Here is Michael Pybus, a very nice rendering here of what looks like an anime. Here's Steven Schwartzer. Here, colored pencils, I believe. Here is Moto Hero. More kind of that solo contemporary, part of a 6-meter painting. Here's Tokyo Pixel. So more interesting illustrations. Here is Chu OXX, more interesting art illustrations. And here, of course, is Okchia Shohai with some shoes, Adidas and Nike. And that is your show, my friends, as we zoom out of here.